right, this is part 2 to my video about identity shifting. And I'm going to speak a little louder because the last video was a little low, maybe because of where I'm doing this video, but I want to get into it from a more biblical perspective, okay? So I'm doing this for several reasons, okay? Slow down. Number one, identity shifting is not like a new phenomenon. It's not like a new concept or anything. It's literally something, if I can trace identity shifting back in the Bible, it's something that's been going on for thousands of years, right? But also I know that I have a following of people who are Christians. And I know that the church has demonized manifestation for several reasons, and I'm going to do a YouTube and video about that when I'm ready. But I think it's important to know that manifestation and manifesting is not a thing that is absent from God, but also just like manifestation, identity shifting as a part of like the process of manifesting is actually in the scriptures. And so we're going to talk about that today. Okay? Today, right now. So I'm going to paraphrase a lot, but I'm going to give like where you can find this stuff. So in Genesis, right, 12, you have a man named Abram who, just a little side note, if you don't believe in God, okay, when I say God and Lord, and you don't believe God exists, I'm just going to tell you right now, it's not your video. Okay, I'm not talking to you. If you are unable to chew the meat and spit out the bone, God is definitely the meat and the bone. But if it just don't apply to you, then this just is not for you, okay? Thank you. All right, you can go. All right. Anyway, for the people who, you are God people, Jesus Christ is Lord for you, this is who I'm talking to. Okay. So in Genesis 12, you have Abram, right? And so Abram is introduced to the Lord, and the Lord is like, hey, Abram, I want you to leave your family. I want you to leave your country. I'm going to make you a nation. I'm going to, from you, there'll be families of people that will be blessed. And he's giving him all of this instruction. And so Abram leaves. He never even met this guy before. He gets this information and he leaves home, right? But Abram and his wife Sarai, if I'm saying that wrong, forgive me, right? They don't have any kids. They don't have girls or boys. They have no children, right? But the whole time, as he's journeying, right, he's journeying with God. God is telling him that he's going to make him a nation. He's going to give him this land, and it's going to be full of like people that come from him and his wife. By the time we get to Genesis 17, God is still talking to Abram about what he's going to do with him, what's going to come from him, the land that he's going to give him. And Abram is like, okay, God, you telling me all this, you keep talking to me about nations and a family, but I don't have an heir except for my assistant, Eliezer, right? So God is like, no, it ain't going to be Eliezer. Like, you're going to have an heir, and he's going to come from you and your wife, right? So in the process of doing that, God is like, you know what, to be honest, I will make you a father of many nations. But first, we got to change your name. And you will no longer be called Abram, but you're going to be called, from now on, your name is Abraham, because I have made you a father of many nations. And God, after that, God makes a covenant between him and him. But what we see here is a literal shift in identities. We literally see Abram introduced to a version of him called Abraham. Abram was the man that God said, I will do, I will. But before he could get to what was on the other side of I will, God had to introduce him to a version of him that Abram was not. Abraham and Abram are two different people. Abraham was the man that was already made a father of many nations. So we see Abram go from being who he was to who God had already made, because creation is made Creation is already done. When God created everything in 7 days and he looked at what he made and he saw that it was good, he rested. So there's nothing that you can manifest that you create. You're not creating anything. It's almost like you live in an apartment, it's fully furnished or whatever, but you have other stuff in a storage unit. Okay? That stuff is not being created. That stuff that's already yours is already made. If you want to go get anything out of your storage unit, right, it's not made evident in your reality because it's in a storage unit. If you want to go get it and bring it into your current world or your apartment or your reality, you may have to get dressed. You have to put on your shoes. You got to put your coat on because it's snow outside, at least out here in Chicago. You gotta change up. You gotta dress up, and you have to go, and you have to go to where it is, and you have to go get it and bring it into your reality. Make it manifest. Make it evident. Make it present where you are. Right. That's almost like the process of like how creation, like everything's already done, so nothing's being created. Abraham was already made. Abram just needed to shift from being Abram to... See, now I'm getting carried away. I'm talking too much. Anyway, Abram needed to shift from being Abram to being Abraham so that he could have his heir. After Abraham made the shift, he ended up having his son Isaac, who was the promise. It literally happened the way God said that it was going to happen. And Sarah had to go through the same transition from being Sarai to being Sarah. We see it all throughout the scriptures. Our Apostle Paul, right, who's one of the fathers of our faith, Apostle Paul was a murderer. He was a gangster. I would call him something else, but I don't want to get shadow banned. God ended up changing his name from being Saul to Paul. Jesus Christ did it to one of the disciples. I think his name was Simon, and he changed it to Peter. So it's a very, very like biblical principle. It's been happening, right? So how does this apply to you, right? If you have like a goal, or you have a place that you want to be, you have a vision board, you have things that you want to accomplish, look at what it is that you want to accomplish and see, who do I need to be? Who is this person that's in this vision? What do they look like? What do they sound like? What's their name? Like who? And shift from who you are, from the person that does not have what it is that you want, or is not who you want to be, to the person who is who you want to be and having what you already want to have. That's identity shifting. And I hope that helps.